The old lighthouse stood sentinel against the wild, churning Atlantic, its beam cutting through the perpetual mist like a lonely heartbeat. Below, nestled precariously on the cliffside, sat the imposing, Gothic revival mansion of the Sinclair family, a fortress of inherited wealth and old secrets. Within its shadowed walls, Anna, a young woman with eyes the color of a stormy sea, moved with a quiet grace, her hands skilled in the domestic arts. A cleaner by trade, her presence was almost invisible, a fleeting whisper among the opulent antiques and hushed corridors. Her life was a study in contrasts, the brutal practicality of her work against the unspoken dreams she harbored, dreams as vast and untamed as the ocean outside. This was the domain of Caleb Sinclair, a man whose reputation preceded him like a cold front. A reclusive shipping magnate, he was a widower, burdened by a grief that had etched deep lines of sorrow into his handsome, aristocratic face, rendering him a figure of both immense power and profound, aching solitude. Their worlds, by all rights, should have remained separate, divided by an invisible, yet impenetrable, social chasm. Yet fate, in its cruel and beautiful wisdom, had other plans. It began subtly, with shared moments in the cavernous library, where Anna would meticulously dust ancient tomes, and Caleb would sit, lost in thought, his gaze often drifting to her. His eyes, usually so cold and distant, would soften, finding a brief, almost imperceptible solace in her quiet diligence, her unassuming beauty. Anna, in turn, found herself inexplicably drawn to the melancholic depth in his gaze, a silent plea for understanding that resonated with a part of her she rarely acknowledged. She saw beyond the formidable exterior, glimpsing the man beneath, a soul burdened by loss, trapped in a gilded cage of his own making. One blustery afternoon, as a squall raged outside, threatening to rip the mansion from its foundations, Anna discovered Caleb slumped in his study, a half-empty decanter of amber liquid beside him, the weight of his grief finally overwhelming him. Instinct, pure and unbidden, took over. She didn't hesitate. Gently, she helped him to his feet, guiding his heavy frame to a plush armchair. As she brewed him strong coffee, her hands trembled, not from fear, but from the intimacy of the moment, the raw vulnerability he had unwittingly exposed. "Thank you," he murmured later, his voice raspy, his eyes still clouded with pain, yet holding a flicker of something new, something almost akin to gratitude. In that moment, the rigid boundaries between master and cleaner blurred, replaced by a fragile, terrifying bridge of human connection. By day, distance. By night, truth. Their unspoken connection deepened over the following weeks, a dangerous, exhilarating current flowing beneath the surface of their meticulously structured lives. Their conversations grew longer, more intimate, moving beyond the practicalities of household affairs. They spoke of books, of the unforgiving beauty of the sea, of the quiet yearning each held in their hearts. Each exchange was a carefully choreographed dance, a subtle, almost imperceptible exploration of forbidden territory. Anna found herself anticipating these stolen moments with a longing that both thrilled and terrified her, a warmth spreading through her veins at the mere thought of his approaching presence. And Caleb, once a recluse in his grief, a man walled off from the world, found himself inexorably drawn to the quiet, unassuming light Anna brought into his shadowed existence. He would seek her out, under the guise of inquiring about household matters, but their eyes, always their eyes, would betray the true, yearning nature of their longing. The tension between them became a palpable, almost suffocating thing, a silent hum in the air whenever they were near. It manifested in the smallest gestures, a brush of hands as he passed her a forgotten scarf, a shared smile that lasted a fraction too long, a whispered good night that held the weight of 1,000 unsaid desires and unspoken promises. They were two celestial bodies, orbiting each other with increasing proximity, their gravitational pull growing stronger with each passing day, threatening to pull them into an inevitable, exhilarating collision. The air crackled with unspoken yearning, a dangerous dance on the very edge of a precipice, a brink from which there was no turning back. "Do you ever feel like the world expects you to be someone you're not, Anna?" he asked one evening, his voice barely above a whisper, heavy with unspoken burdens, as they stood by the grand fireplace, the flickering flames mirroring the nascent fire in their eyes. She simply met his gaze, her own eyes holding a depth of understanding, and in her eloquent silence, he found his undeniable answer. One moonlit night, the air thick with the scent of night-blooming jasmine and the intoxicating perfume of forbidden desire, Caleb, no longer able to deny the undeniable, found Anna in the hushed solitude of the library, a haven she often frequented after her duties were done. The room was bathed in the soft, ethereal glow of moonlight filtering through the tall arched windows, casting long, dancing shadows. He moved towards her, his movements slow and deliberate, a careful predator and yet a man utterly, frighteningly vulnerable. "I shouldn't," he breathed, his voice rough with raw emotion, his eyes burning into hers with an intensity that stole her breath. "But I can't stay away." He reached out, his hand hovering in the space between them for a hesitant moment, then gently, reverently, touched her cheek, his thumb tracing the delicate curve of her jawline. It was a touch that ignited a fire deep within her, a silent, profound declaration that shattered the invisible walls they had so carefully, so desperately, built around themselves. In that incandescent moment, the world outside, with its rigid rules, its unforgiving judgments, and its societal expectations, ceased to exist. Only they remained, two souls drawn together by a love that defied logic, mocked convention, and seemed utterly, gloriously inevitable. Their clandestine meetings became a nightly ritual, a sacred, secret world woven into the intricate, ancient fabric of the grand estate. Under the benevolent cloak of darkness, they shed their assigned roles, she, the dutiful cleaner, he, the imposing magnate, becoming simply Caleb and Anna, two people desperately, hopelessly in love. He would seek her out in the quiet, forgotten corners of the house, in the moon-drenched conservatory, where exotic plants seemed to listen to their whispered confessions, in the hushed solitude of the library, surrounded by centuries of stories, or in the hidden alcoves of the sprawling gardens, where the night air carried the scent of their longing. Their conversation stretched into the early, pre-dawn hours, filled with hushed confessions, shared dreams, and the tender, growing intimacy of two souls finding their most profound refuge in each other's presence. Each stolen moment was a bittersweet symphony, beautiful in its intensity, yet perpetually shadowed by the constant, gnawing fear of discovery, of exposure. "This is madness," she whispered one night, her head resting on his chest, listening to the steady, comforting rhythm of his heart, a counterpoint to the wild beating of her own. "We shouldn't." Her voice was laced with both desire and a profound sense of foreboding. His arms tightened around her, pulling her closer, as if to absorb her into himself. "Then let us be mad," he murmured, his lips brushing her hair, sending shivers down her spine. "For in this madness, Anna, I have found more truth, more joy, more life than in all my sane, desolate years." Their love was a dangerous flame, a moth drawn irrevocably to a candle, beautiful in its flickering intensity, but perilously close to self-destruction. The guilt, however, was a constant, unwelcome companion, a heavy, suffocating cloak draped over their clandestine joy. Anna felt the immense weight of her precarious position, the unspoken betrayal of the trust that had been so generously placed in her. Caleb, too, carried the heavy burden of his past, the spectral presence of his deceased wife, a silent, ever-present observer in their most intimate, secret moments. Their stolen happiness was a double-edged sword, bringing them immense, intoxicating joy, but also an agonizing, ever-present sense of wrongdoing, of trespass. The world outside their fragile, secret bubble was slowly, inexorably closing in, its rigid expectations and unforgiving judgments threatening to shatter their fragile sanctuary into 1,000 irreparable pieces. One deceptively ordinary afternoon, as Anna was leaving the estate after her duties, a chance encounter on the winding drive changed everything. Caleb's sister, Lillian, a woman as sharp as a finely honed blade, pulled up in her sleek black car. Her eyes, cold and assessing, swept over Anna, then lingered on the almost imperceptible flush on Anna's cheeks, the way her gaze darted towards the mansion's upper windows. Lillian's lips curled into a thin, knowing smile. Keeping the house warm for my brother, are we, Anna? She drawled, her voice dripping with condescension and veiled malice. The words stung with the cold precision of a surgeon's knife, not because they were untrue, but because they so cruelly exposed the agonizing vulnerability of their carefully guarded secret. A cold, creeping dread seeped into Anna's heart, chilling her to the bone. The fragile illusion of their hidden world was beginning to crack, spiderweb fissures appearing across its delicate surface. The inevitable confrontation came not with a dramatic bang, but with a chilling, echoing silence that was far more terrifying. Lillian, a master of subtle manipulation, wasted no time. She presented Caleb with a series of seemingly innocuous observations. Anna's lingering presence, the newfound lightness in his demeanor, the quiet, almost conspiratorial glances. To an outsider, these might have seemed trivial, but to Caleb, now acutely aware, they were damning, irrefutable evidence of a bond too strong to ignore. "Are you truly so blind, Caleb?" she had said, her voice laced with a bitter disappointment, a thinly veiled accusation of betrayal to his late wife's memory. Or simply so unforgivably selfish? Caleb, reeling from the unexpected, brutal confrontation, found Anna later that evening in the hushed solitude of the kitchen, her face etched with a pain that mirrored his own. "Lillian knows," he said, his voice flat, devoid of its usual warmth, carrying the heavy weight of defeat. Anna's heart clenched, a vice-like grip that stole her breath. The words were a physical blow, a confirmation of her deepest fears. A wave of profound shame and crippling fear washed over her, threatening to drown her. She had known, intellectually, that this day would eventually come, yet its brutal arrival felt no less devastating, no less soul-crushing. "I knew this would happen," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes, blurring the edges of her vision. "I should never have—" She couldn't finish the sentence, the immense weight of their forbidden love suffocating her, stealing her voice. A cruel misunderstanding, fueled by fear, guilt, and Lillian's insidious manipulations, began to fester between them. In a moment of panic and desperate, misguided attempts to protect Anna from the looming, destructive scandal that threatened to engulf them both, Caleb distanced himself. He grew cold, uncommunicative, his once tender words replaced by formal, clipped instructions. Anna, heartbroken, and believing that he was deeply ashamed of her, misconstrued his actions as a profound betrayal, a cruel dismissal of their sacred, hard-won bond. The whispers in the house, once hushed, grew louder, fueled by Lillian's subtle, poisonous insinuations, hinting at Anna's opportunistic nature, her calculating ambition, portraying her as a gold digger. Anna felt utterly alone, isolated, her heart shattering into a million irreparable pieces, convinced that Caleb regretted every moment they had shared, every whispered promise. "I need you to understand," Caleb pleaded one evening, cornering her in the quiet, echoing hall, his eyes etched with a raw, desperate pain that mirrored her own. "This isn't about you, Anna. Not in the way you think. It's about protecting you from the scandal, this malicious gossip." But his words, meant to reassure, only fueled Anna's growing despair, intensifying her sense of abandonment. "Protecting me?" she retorted, her voice trembling with barely suppressed anger and profound hurt. "Or protecting your reputation, your family name, your precious legacy?" Her words, sharp with pain and a deep, agonizing misunderstanding, cut him deeply, twisting in the wound. He looked at her, wounded, speechless, the chasm between them widening with each unspoken accusation, each misunderstood glance. By day, distance. By night, truth. But now, even night seemed to offer no solace. The tension in the Sinclair mansion became an unbearable, suffocating blanket of unspoken words and deeply wounded pride. Anna, unable to bear the immense weight of the increasingly public accusations and Caleb's perceived betrayal, made the heart-wrenching decision to leave. She packed her meager belongings with trembling hands, each item a reminder of a dream shattered, her heart a raw, gaping wound. As she walked towards the servants' exit, the very air seemed to press down on her, heavy with the weight of her sorrow. Just as she reached the threshold, a voice, filled with a desperate urgency, sliced through the heavy silence. "Anna! Wait. Caleb stood there, his face haggard, his eyes pleading. I heard Lillian. I heard what she said about you to the staff. I've been a fool. My distance, it was cowardice. Anna, pure cowardice. I was trying to protect you from her venom, but I only pushed you away. It was never about shame. Never about regretting you. He moved towards her, his voice choked with raw emotion, with regret so deep it physically pained him. Forgive me. Forgive me for being a coward. Forgive me for letting you believe, even for a moment, that I would ever betray us, betray what we have. In his eyes, Anna saw not the distant, powerful, imposing man she had sometimes feared, but the vulnerable, heartbroken soul she had utterly, irrevocably fallen in love with. The raw pain, the profound regret, the desperate, unyielding love that mirrored her own, shone clearly in their depths. The last, fragile wall between them crumbled, replaced by an overwhelming, surging wave of relief, understanding, and a love that transcended all obstacles. Caleb, she whispered, her voice barely audible, choked with tears, as she finally, utterly collapsed into his embrace. The Sinclair mansion, once a place of shadows, secrets, and stifling conventions, now stood as a testament to a love that had defied societal norms and overcome profound personal fears. Caleb, with Anna proudly, defiantly by his side, faced the inevitable scrutiny, the whispers, and the judgments with a newfound strength, a fierce protectiveness. He no longer hid their love, but embraced it openly, defiantly, challenging the rigid conventions and expectations that had once dictated every aspect of his life. It wasn't an easy path. Society, especially his unforgiving sister, did not readily accept their unconventional union. But for the first time in a very long time, Caleb felt truly, irrevocably free, unburdened by the ghosts of his past and the expectations of his name. Anna, no longer simply a cleaner but a woman cherished, respected, and deeply loved, stood tall beside him, her quiet strength a beacon that guided them. Their love, once a forbidden whisper, became a quiet revolution, proving that true connection transcended status, expectation, and the cruel judgments of others. They moved forward, hand in hand, building a life together, not without its challenges, its moments of doubt, but with an unwavering commitment to each other, a bond forged in the crucible of adversity. The whispers of forbidden love eventually faded, replaced by the quiet, grudging admiration for a bond so profoundly strong, so resilient, so real. By day, their love shone brightly. By night, it was their sanctuary. Their story became a poignant, breathtaking reminder that love, in its purest, most authentic form, often thrives in the most unexpected places, defying the arbitrary boundaries set by the world, daring to bloom even in the deepest, most shadowed corners of existence. It leaves us with the profound, bittersweet truth that sometimes the greatest treasures, the most enduring joys, are found when we dare to challenge the very rules that attempt to define us, when we choose the tumultuous, dangerous path of the heart over the safe, predictable, yet ultimately unfulfilling road. For in the shadows, where secrets once dwelled and despair once reigned, a love so profound, so resilient, so utterly real had blossomed, proving that true connection is a force that cannot and will not be denied. It leaves us with the poignant, aching truth that some loves are not meant to be easy, but rather meant to be fought for, sacrificed for, cherished with every fiber of one's being, and ultimately celebrated, for they are the ones that leave an indelible, everlasting mark on the soul, forever whispering the timeless story of a forbidden love that, against all odds, dared to find its light and bloom.